Welcome, City Council, to our first council meeting in our new chambers here. We appreciate the work. We'll say a few words here in a few minutes about that. Why don't we say who's present? Please, Kate.
Kate Bradshaw.
Chris Simonson.
Kendallin Harris.
Randy Lewis.
Millie Segura-Barr.
Richard Higginson.
Thank you, Council. And we appreciate all of you who are here to observe tonight. I'm really glad. I hope some of you have come because you've been curious about this renovated City Hall. And this is really yours, so that's what we appreciate. We really are blessed in Bountiful to pick the right designers, the right architects. We have the great engineering staff here in our city, as well as all the other departments that add to everything that it takes to make a great building. I think it is one of the things that I look at in my life and say, when you see a building like this, those who contributed so highly to it have to be really pleased and proud that it's going to stand for a long, long time. They have done a great service to this city. Of course, the City Council, over a fairly lengthy period of time, is really the ones who are responsible for making the decisions that make this new City Hall really a reality. There's a lot of those who sometimes excoriate government for what they do and what they don't do. But one thing that I think is really clear from what the City Council has done over the years is made really, really good decisions. You remember, some of you, that we had quite a bit of controversy over City Hall just a few years ago. And here we are today, really doing, as a City Council, doing exactly what they ask us to do, what you ask us to do as residents of Bountiful, and that was to renovate and remodel the present City Hall. And I hope that you're all pleased. I think, if you remember, I'm not sure I could see people in the darkness on the back row of the previous City Council chamber, and now it is just so bright and great. I know it's a little late. You probably can't see everything through those windows behind me, but we really get a precious picture of our community by looking up at our hillside. We just are so honored and appreciative of what is being done here. Our city manager and all of those who work, Gary Hill and all those who work with him, have been energized by this project for a long time. And it's been, what, nearly 2 years, Gary? How long have we been?
Yeah, under construction and out of this building for 2 years.
We've been out of the building for 2 years, so we've been, our folks have been in the water building in downtown and in the police department. We've been all over, and so this is a treat for us to be home. This is now our home, and really your home, and we get to work here and provide the services that you've asked us to provide to you, and we know that we do them well. Anyway, thank you for being here. We'll begin by asking Carl James Keyes to stand and lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Keyes. Also, Kendallin's father. So we appreciate that. Today, for our prayer here, our first one in this, really in our facility, we appreciate President Sterling Bennett, a counselor in the North Canyon Stake Presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If you'd please come and offer a prayer, we'd much appreciate it.
Our loving Father in heaven, on this momentous night, in the first meeting of this refurbished City Hall, we are grateful for the privilege of being living in the United States of America. We're grateful for thy hand upon our land, and we're grateful to be residents of the city of Bountiful. And thank thee for the blessings that thou hast bestowed upon this city and continues to. We're grateful for our city leaders. We're thankful that we can join together in prayer to pray in their behalf and in behalf of the citizens, the residents of our city, those who work tirelessly for the welfare of their neighbors, and pray that their efforts may be fruitful. We ask thy Spirit to be present in this meeting tonight, to bless our city leaders with wisdom, with insight, with a spirit of collaboration and cooperation with each other and with the citizens, that the perplexing problems that face them may be solvable, and that the city may continue to move forward in meeting the needs of the residents. And in gratitude again, we pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you much, President. We appreciate that. A couple of things I didn't mention. One is, please be patient. Our city staff says there's still a lot of punch list things that have to happen here in City Hall. We're able to be here, but there's a lot of little things that are going to come up, so please be patient as maybe something doesn't work exactly right, but they'll all be fixed in the end. This is the time for public comment, and that time is 10 minutes of public comment with 2 minutes for each individual. And if you'll come up to the podium, and you see our little clock right here, and give your name and where you live, we would be very happy to have you participate. And so now the time is yours.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Robert Stiegel. I'm a resident of Bountiful near the golf course, and I'm rising in support of the fiber to the home idea that's been proposed. I appreciate the support I've heard from the council. A couple of ideas that I'd like to propose, and one is I think you're all in favor, but I want to make sure that you emphasize competition so that no matter how you put this in, the residents will have a lot of choices. Even if the current duopoly were working, I have 2 choices. I would still want more competition, but the fact is that the duopoly isn't working. Like Councilwoman Harris, I've tried both of the options, and I've been very dissatisfied with both of them. They sit back on their laurels because there is no competition. If there were more, the service would be better, and that's what the residents deserve. The model of the airport is one that I think is going to work, and in future years, we'll look back at this time when there was only 2 choices because everybody had to spend $1 billion to compete, is going to be one that we'll laugh at. And I think that this is the future, and I'm pleased to see you supporting that. I think that the current competitors will spend an enormous amount of money to defeat this, and I would counsel the council to resist and to be wary of that. And lastly, having been on both sides of the government contracting business on the DoD level, I would suggest that you consider some sort of an RFI, even if it's an informal one, because some of the best ideas come from your providers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mike Lingler. I'm a resident of Bountiful for 6 years. I just live up the top of 500 South. I'm actually a former colleague of Bill's before he retired. But I am a proponent of the fiber installation. When I was looking for a place to move 6 years ago, having the Utopia fiber was one of the things I considered. However, Bountiful seems to be a place where people want to move, so that may not be the greatest consideration. But there are some others that I've taken notes here, and I'll endeavor to speak clearly. So one of the concepts I've seen other cities pursue is having a subsidized option for low-income families to provide them a benefit of internet access, allowing them to pursue education opportunities, also fill out resumes and applications of finding other places to get employment. Also, we have seen the increased emphasis on telework for employees, including government workers or other people. And this close to Salt Lake City, Bountiful is a very desirable place for us to live as a bedroom community, as Alan himself mentioned. And the current ISPs do not provide a lot of choices, and it is, I agree with Bill on those aspects. Other ideas are that during installation, those installations can be coinciding with other maintenance work on the roads, sewer line upgrades, underground power lines, other major road work could be done to coincide with the fiber installs to reduce the cost overall. I do acknowledge, though, we need to be careful with the funds we have to invest them wisely, so I am strongly in favor of doing the survey to ensure that we will have the take rate required to not burden ourselves with a bond which will invest over 10 years. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thanks.
My name is Mike Gibson, and I've lived here about 12 years up in the Valverde area. I also rise to support the fiber proposal. One of the Facebook group that I'm in has almost 1,000 people in it, so I think there's clearly a desire for this. I'm a software engineer, and I work out in the South Valley. We've been all home for this past year, but I work with a lot of different people from a lot of different parts of Utah, of the valley. And those that have Utopia have zero complaints about it. In fact, they sing the praises, and there's a bit of ribbing to us that don't have that option just because they know that our service is not good, our customer service is not good. And every one of them sings the praises of the customer service experiences that they have, being constantly notified about situations and downtimes and things like that. So I just know, like, this is just a thing that works for everybody that has it and they love it. Utopia, they had initial problems, like any sort of endeavor like that. It's going to have initial problems, but they really seem to have gotten it all worked out, and everything is working great for them now. The amount of competition really is something we need to look at. It's going to make customer service and all of that work a lot better for us. So I endeavor you to get that survey out as quickly as possible so that we can get this moving. Thank you.
My name is David Burr. I live up on Huntington Drive. I am the owner of Sumo Fiber, which is a Utopia provider. So I'm a little bit biased, but anyways, my 2 cents here is I would encourage you guys to get the survey out sooner than later. The purpose of the survey is going to determine if you can get 10% take rate, then the project's dead. If you can get 50% take rate, you're going to have fiber, through Utopia without any cost at all. So that's going to be a little bit more important than getting it vetted, because you might be dead before you even get to that point. Anyways, I'm going to give my information to Alan West, and I can help him. We are also a provider up in Ammon, Idaho, so I'm very familiar with Front Point. We're also a provider in Idaho Falls, which has purchased their own fiber, but they're using Utopia as the management company. We're going to be in Dallas, Texas in 2 months, so we're pretty familiar with the open access network. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name is David Johnson. I live over near Valverde, and I'm a teacher at Bountiful Junior High. And can I say, with this online learning, another thing important with internet is having equally fast upload speeds, because most of the service providers we have now, they have decent download speeds if you're willing to pay for it. But even those ones where you would pay, more than $100, way more than $100 to get the high upload speeds, the high download speeds, their maximum upload speeds are laughable. They really are. So make sure you factor that in your decision, please. Factor in the upload speeds. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's about the end of our comment period, but I think it'd be really nice. Is there anyone that would be brave enough to come and stand up and say what they think about this new building when you walked in here today? Thank you. Is there anybody who'd like to make a comment up at the podium? All right. Anyway, I really appreciate you clapping because we're really kind of giddy about this. This is pretty fun for us. Thank you. We will look at the minutes of our previous meeting held on February 9th, 2021. I'd look for approval if there aren't any corrections or additions.
Move to approve as printed.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Council reports. Richard?
Nothing this evening, except it's good to be home and good to see a good law enforcement contingent here to support the old and the new. Age not mentioned.
Yeah, great, Richard. And Millie?
Nothing to report.
Thank you. And Kendallin?
I'll just report as the liaison to the History Commission in Bountiful that it's just in keeping with tonight's theme so far. They are in need of some more affordable broadband services for their security cameras, and so that's just something that they talked about in their last meeting, as well as the windstorm injured the roof of the Willie cabin, and so they're looking at trying to get that repaired. Just an update from them.
Thank you. Chris?
Mayor, I do have a comment.
Please.
This is a beautiful, beautiful building, and I'm so happy to be sitting here, seeing so many faces, and I feel so safe with the police officers here on our first night. Thank you. I know there's a reason you came, but thank you. And also, this building was perfectly placed next to our Veterans Park.
I knew you were going to get that in, Chris.
Those two go just like this.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
Thank you, city.
That's
Thank
nice.
you, thank you.
And Kate?
As part of my assignments, I serve on the Legislative Policy Committee representing Bountiful with the League of Cities and Towns, and I would like to report that we still have a bit to go in the legislative session till March 5th at midnight. There are unfortunately a lot of bills that have components that subtract from local control, not just the ADU bill that we discussed in our last meeting, but bills dealing with billboards, with building permits, with significant water issues. And so to my council colleagues, I would say keep an eye on your city emails for when the League of Cities and Towns is asking for help to reach out to committee members and to legislators. And to any of our residents that might be tuning in, I would say this is an important issue for people to keep an eye on. There's often on different social media groups, we see complaints about, why are we having more condos? Why are we having more apartments? Why are we having these different requirements? Doesn't the city, care about these issues? And there's an interesting interaction at play between state requirements and local authority and what we can and can't do. And if this is an issue that matters to you, now is the time to pay attention to the legislature in these final 2 weeks.
Thank you, Kate. Anything else? Thank
Mayor,
you.
could I ask Kate a question?
Please.
Kate, what are the couple of most injurious to cities' local control?
Two bills, significant bills that are still in play. Billboards, two different billboard bills that are working their way through that have significant impact to all cities across the state.
Who's sponsoring those two bills?
One is sponsored by Senator Dave Hinkins and one by Senator Scott Sandel.
Okay.
Then there is another bill, HB 98, dealing with building code issues, timelines, inspections, the ability for contractors to essentially kind of use a private building inspector if they don't feel like the city's
That's
moving fast enough.
Representative Ray.
That's Representative Paul Ray. So those are just a few moving through. There's there have been a lot, and there still continues to even today be new bills introduced that the league is evaluating. Quite frankly, the League of Cities and Towns and their staff is amazing, given the volume of bills aimed at cities in several different land use categories, in the water category, in the law enforcement category, since all of our law enforcement friends are here. There's been a lot of bills dealing with law enforcement issues, and the league staff is, they're not sleeping, they're just reading bills, and, you know, our city manager serves on that executive committee, so I know he's been deeply involved, and those on the LPC committee have been involved, but it's definitely, some of those urgent alerts that come across your email, and there's one that came out tonight on billboards. I would just strongly urge everyone to take a look at and help where you can.
Thanks.
There are no other comments. Consider approval of expenditures greater than $1,000 paid February 1st and 8th of 2021, and I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve the expenditures greater than $1,000 paid February 1st, 8th of 2021.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes as well. Well, we have an unusual circumstance tonight in that we don't swear in a chief of police very often. And Kate and Chris and I were privileged to be on a committee that interviewed for the new chief position here in Bountiful, and that was a rewarding 4 hours, huh? Kate, Chris,
Very much so.
huh?
Yes, I would say that we had some great candidates, and it was a pleasure to see those candidates, meet those candidates, and then, of course, to make a selection.
Yep. Yes, and that selection was unanimous, and our new chief of police is Ed Beeler, and we're just thrilled to have you, Ed. Thank you for being here, and for your good wife, and it looks like your family. So thank you for being here, and I'm going to turn a little time over to Gary.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, it's interesting, tonight in a few minutes, we're going to also recognize our former chief, Tom Ross, and it's no coincidence that these two wanted to do this together tonight, because they've played such a huge role in developing the culture for our police department and the high esteem that our community has for our police. Couldn't be happier with the selection of Ed, and we're just excited for the next steps. So at this time, I think we'll invite Shauna Andrus, our city recorder, to come up and administer the oath to Chief Beeler.
Repeat after me. I, Ed Beeler,
I, Ed Beeler,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief.
Just going to take a quick minute, if you allow me. The very first sentence of the police department mission statement says that we will provide the highest quality police services to the citizens of Bountiful. We have created a culture of providing high-quality services to our residents, and our number one priority and commitment to you, the residents of Bountiful, and all who come to our city, is to continue that mission. We work with and are surrounded by the best people this state has to offer. For years, we have been committed to this concept. By the nature of our job, we are mandated to provide public safety, order, and equal protection under the law. We will continue to foster a culture of professionalism and integrity as we serve our community. I also recognize our commitment to our to our preparedness for major events. In just the last 10 years, we've seen a major windstorm with significant property damage, an active shooter in one of our schools, a large fire on our east bench, an earthquake, followed by another windstorm with significant damage. We have been preparing and training for these events for numerous years, and we are committed to continuing to make enhancements and improvements to prepare for any such events that occur in the future. We have the finest police department staff in the state, whether it's our sworn officers, dispatchers, records staff, evidence technician, or assistant. It's an honor for me to be associated with them. To learn from them and serve side by side with them. Unless you have been in this profession, it may be impossible to fully understand the difficulties and sacrifices these fine men and women make in an effort to selflessly serve our community. Those difficulties and sacrifices undoubtedly get endured by their families as well. Their well-being, both physical and mental, is important to me. We cannot do our best work if we are not healthy ourselves, and we will look for ways to improve our staff's physical and mental well-being. 25 years ago, I was in the Bountiful High School cafeteria, one of around 300 people who were testing for just a couple of jobs, a couple of openings. Chief Rapp took a chance on a young kid from Taylorsville with no experience, and he gave me an opportunity to prove myself. I can't thank him enough for doing that and being the leader he was during my time with him. I worked closely with Chief Ross my entire career. He's been the best mentor and, more importantly, a friend that I could have ever asked for. He has helped me to be the leader and professional that I am today. I also thank my coworkers for their support. They have been supportive and patient as I've grown in my assignments. I truly learn from them each day, and I hope I can live up to their expectations and continue to lead our department in our tradition of excellence. I want to thank my family, especially my wife. It's not easy being a law enforcement spouse, and she and my kids have been amazing and understanding, and she's a rock. And finally, I want to thank the mayor, city council members, and city manager, both past and present, for your continual support of the police department. I cannot praise you enough for your civility and care for all the concerns that continually come before you. My promise to you is to always be engaged and accountable to you and to all of our residents while we do our very best to fulfill our responsibilities. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Chief, I am extremely proud to live in a community that supports not only the chief of police, but all of those who you work with. All of the policemen in this community are supported by all of us, and I'm proud about that. Thank you very much.
Mayor, can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Quickly, thank you. I happen to serve on the selection committee, and the day after, 3 individuals came to me. One came to my house, one came to my office, and one came to me at Costco and said, "Who's the next chief?" And I said, "I can't tell you." To the person, "I sure hope it's Ed." There's a lot of respect for you, Chief, in this community. Thank you for going forward and doing what you do. Thank you.
Thanks again, Ed. So we get to stay on this same theme of our great police chiefs, and that is Chief Tom Ross. I'm going to turn some time over to Gary, and we'll proceed from there.
I'm going to come to the podium for this one. Tom, would you and Rama mind coming up? Of course you have to come up, Rama. Did Tom warn you? Maybe it was smart not to. You can blame me for this later. I know. I just want to say this. I appreciate the opportunity from the mayor to be able to begin this introduction of Tom and his awesome wife. You know, when I thought about the opportunity to talk about the impact they've had on our community, both employees at one point, I realized that part of the struggle that I'm going to have tonight is that Tom has felt like my personal chief. Not just Bountiful's police chief, but my friend, my personal police chief. And as I thought about that, I realized that I think everyone here feels that way. And you have that ability and have had that ability to make everyone feel like they're the most important person. If it wasn't real, we sure believe it. But we know it's sincere. I just want to say, and then I'll give time for the mayor to say a few moments, and then we'll have an opportunity from here to hear from you two. But the very first person I met when I was offered this job was Tom. We went to lunch, and there's nothing quite like the trust that you can have between a city manager and a police chief. You work so closely together for the benefit of the community. It's such a valuable and important relationship, and incidentally, it's one that I share with Ed, and I trust him completely. But I told Tom's department at the time as he was leaving that I trust Tom completely. I know that if I called even now in the middle of the night, Tom's one of those people that would come. And he wouldn't come because it was a responsibility. He'd come because he's my friend and because he knows that he wants to help. And so with that, I'm going to turn the time over to the mayor to come forward and say what he has to say, but just want to say to Tom and Rayma, thank you. And this better not be the last time we see you guys, and I see you guys.
Well, I think, first of all, it'd be nice to give you the flowers, if you wouldn't be careful, because they're a little, I think it's like a Mercedes or something that we're giving to you. You know, this is how it works. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We should switch those, Raymond. That's how it works. Yes.
She'll take it anyway, trust me.
You know, it's interesting how Chief Ross is, and that is since I've been the mayor, he's made me feel like I'm just his personal friend all the time. I feel like I'm his best friend all the time. And what's a great character to have, Chief Ross has, and that is to make everyone feel that way. But I'm going to still feel that way. I'm still going to feel like I'm special. I think the other thing is when Bountiful gets someone chosen from our family to do something like you have with the adult and juvenile system, justice system for the state of Utah, and chosen by our new governor, that makes us all proud. And it's a great honor for you, but it's a great honor for us as well. And we just applaud you. We appreciate you. Thank you for all that you've done here. And thank you for training up the new chief, because we're going to love him too. Thank you. Thank you both. I'd love to hear a little bit from both of you. Thanks.
Tom, right before you speak, we'd like to turn a little bit of time over to new Chief Beeler, who has a presentation.
Give him a
Oh, perfect.
So as is our tradition, when a police officer retires, we present them with their weapon and a plaque to be able to send them off. But as you all know, the timing of how he went out was too fast to make some of that happen. When you get called on a Tuesday, interview on a Wednesday, get offered a job on a Thursday, and never come back to work again, it made it difficult. made it difficult for this to happen. So we did get his plaque put together for him. So if you give me just another second to read this off, and then we'll be able to hear from him if that's all right. The Bountiful Police Department recognizes Police Chief Tom Ross for his outstanding service to the citizens of Bountiful City. Chief Ross has served as Chief Ross has served the city of Bountiful for 34 honorable years, holding the rank of Chief of Police for the last 15 years. Throughout his time in Bountiful, he held nearly every position and assignment in the department. Tom always left his assignment better than when he found it. Some of those assignments include reserve officer, police officer, detective, SWAT team leader, and SRO. As the chief of police, Tom served on numerous boards and committees. Tom served as the president of the Utah Chiefs of Police Association for 4+ years. In that position, he influenced the direction of law enforcement for the entire state of Utah. Tom also played a critical role with the launching of the Davis County Receiving Center, which is a model for helping those suffering from mental health and substance abuse issues. Chief Ross's leadership and influence within the department and representing law enforcement across the state of Utah is far-reaching. Tom is a great example of a leader doing the right thing for the right reasons. He has always been a leader and mentor to those he associates with, and law enforcement is better today because of his influence. So with that,
Good.
Multiple times.
Well, I think I first need to say, Mayor and Council, this is a beautiful building. It was interesting that last night when I was laying there in bed and I was thinking, I'm going to finish up one night in this new building that there's been conversation about for many years, several years. And it's actually exciting to come in here and see how it's turned out. And I think that just the legacy that it will, put in place for Bountiful for the next 50+ years. It was nice to be able to come here and stand before you one time and in this building. So there's a lot of people to thank. And I should start with the mayor and council that selected me as the chief back in December 2006, Mayor Johnson and the council members, Tom Hardy, city manager. I was a sergeant at the time. I was testing because I believe that I'll learn from it. They'll tell me if I do these things and learn more administrative skills and get more experience and come back, that I'll have an opportunity somewhere in the future, and I would have been good with that. Somehow, stars aligned, and they offered me and appointed me the police chief position. I was shocked. I still look back on that and realize that there was a risk that they took. And it wasn't about work ethic and workability, because I think they had seen that over the years. But they didn't know what kind of leadership I would bring and what I would be able to do in that role, but they took a risk. And I will always appreciate that. As Ed mentioned earlier, to you, I consider each and every one of you my friends. And I would show up anywhere, anytime, if any of you ever needed help, anybody sitting in this room. Because that's what I've been doing for 34 years. Everything that I bring to the state comes from here. I've sat in living rooms around this city with people in crisis, victims and offenders alike, wanting to do more, wanting to support those that have been injured and harmed, give them some sense of that first step forward in healing, that they can do this. Those that found themselves on the other side of the law, I always felt that could have been me. Had I grown up in a different set of circumstances, different DNA, different opportunities, maybe even a different color of skin. That could have been me. And what that did for me is it took away the judgment. And it built in a much higher level of compassion and empathy. And it made me want to help them also find that first footing, that first step to help dig them out of a hole that they were realizing was collapsing in all around them. And it was through all those conversations and all those difficult moments that helped over time for me to see that we need to do more and there's things we can do better. And the receiving center is not all mine. I know that. There were many, many hands that lifted that. But it was those stories that I heard and those individuals who, by oftentimes no intention of their own, found themselves in serious trouble, losing families, losing jobs, losing their freedom. And there just seemed a need to be able to do something more at the front end before we put them in the criminal justice system. So I think the opportunities that I've had is exactly why I'm where I am today. If I can bring this bountiful experience of 45,000 residents, which is no different than every community in this state and around this country, and if I can bring what I've learned here to this new role and maybe help to continue building upon some of these concepts and ideas, you may not know, but Davis County was actually, if not the first county in the state to have mobile crisis response, we were the second. And that was a benefit of being able to go into Davis Behavioral Health and knowing what law enforcement deals with the mentally ill and how challenging that can be, telling the board that I will serve on this board if we will find a way to improve that response on the front end with law enforcement. And that's exactly what happened. So when I was offered the position that I'm in now, I didn't want to leave. This is my family. It's truly been one of the greatest loves of my life. The people you see behind me, the people in that building, Bountiful is fortunate. The leadership in our city manager, and all of our directors, who are all friends. Bountiful is fortunate because you have people here that care more about our residents than their own protection, their own building, their own ideas and wants and needs. And that's what drives what happens here. And it's been that way for a long time. That's a credit to you as elected officials in empowering us to have voices and then holding us accountable to make sure that we deliver on the promises that you made to your constituents. Last but certainly not least, I should have put a tack in my shoe, is my family. Ed's right when he said that our families pay a price for us to do something that we love so much. There's a lot of inconveniences. There's a lot of worry. There's a lot of risk. A lot of away time. Even at times when we're home, we're still away because our minds are caught up in something else that happened. but my wife, who plays a significantly huge role in my success. When I did the interview for the chief's job, she helped me put together a business model plan, much like a CEO would do for a private company. That made probably the biggest difference, because they were able to see maybe there is more experience and capability than what it looked like on paper. And she helped me with that. A lot of the ideas that I've been able to bring forward have come from those conversations with her. And it's funny, I'm not embarrassed by it. I'm a Republican, she's a Democrat. We have great conversations, but it has kept us very centered in the things we do. And I care about things that I didn't care about 30, 40 years ago, because I didn't know better. And she sees value in some of the things that I feel as well, and that's my family. You see my kids and their spouses. Some spouses are home taking care of young grandkids. That's my greatest success. And whenever I'm struggling or whenever I feel down, they're the ones that lift me up. We have a close family. And that's the balancing piece. You've heard me talk about Yellowstone and my life there, and there's a huge part of my life. That's my family's life too. But that kept me sane and able to deal with the things that happen that might be ugly and moving forward with that. So thank you to my family. It's hard to believe 34 years passed this quickly. Started in '86. And I still thought I'd be wearing a uniform a little bit longer. It's so much easier to dress in that uniform than to figure out what the heck I'm going to wear. Again, my wife helps me in that sense. But I just want to say thank you to this city. When I worked at graveyard shifts, I started early in my career, maybe the third year in, at the time was Bountiful Boulevard, but I would drive to the highest portions of the city every shift, unless something happened that kept us so busy. And I would get out of my car and I would look out over the city, and it was Bountiful Boulevard, then it was the Ridges, then it was Sunset Hollow and Highland Oaks, and then it was Summerwood. And I would look out over the city and say to myself, somebody out there needs my help. Somebody out there is being victimized right now. And it would just bring in perspective this wonderful opportunity of living the life of a protector. And I would drive through those streets at night, looking, listening, roll my windows down, going 3 miles an hour, just in case. So I will always miss my law enforcement career. It was hard to have everything switch so quickly at his right. It was a matter of a few days. Never would have thought that would happen. I told Gary not too long ago that when it does happen, I will give you plenty of notice. You'll have a few months to plan. And no, I didn't do that. But so thank you. Thank you to wonderful, 34 wonderful years. I will still be around. I can't help it. And Bountiful is in the best hands. My successes came from Ed, the people standing behind, Dave and Troy, people before him. I'll leave on just this one note. It was an interesting, I was thinking about this as well. Mid-90s, 93, 94, 95. 8 of us on the SWAT team. Ed was one of those. Out of those 8 individuals, 5 of us have been chiefs. Ed, Chief Oberg in Kaysville, Chief Hickson, who was just retired recently, West Bountiful, Chief Jolly in Monroe, Washington. A sixth one of us was a lieutenant in our department, Gary Cohen, who retired and started a cattle business. It was those conversations, those people, that helped me, that developed me. We put all of us on the right path. And I hope everyone that's standing back there is doing the same thing. Because when we were struggling, we were lifting each other up. And that's a competitive group, and any one of them could have had my position as chief, any one of them could have had Ed's position as chief. But we stood behind whoever happened to get the promotion, whoever happened to get that step. So I owe them a lot. And I'll just end with saying thank you. It's been a wonderful 34 years. I'm committed to 4 years up there, and I hope I can help do some good things for the state of Utah on criminal justice policy. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
For those of you, oh, go ahead. Please, Richard. Yep, please, Richard.
Chief Ross, if I could bug you and make a comment about you here for a second. I just want to say that Bountiful has been really blessed by the beautiful style of police culture that you have fostered here. And your comments tonight just reinforce that. I know that in any meeting I've ever sat with you in or with Ed in, there isn't just a concern about enforcement. The primary concern is with individuals and in helping individuals. And I know that that's why you were tapped to fill the position that you're currently in. We miss you already. We know we're in great hands. I was hoping that the culture that has been created here could be preserved. And I know that with Ed, it's in safe hands. And I love the fact that we can do little things like commit ourselves to the resource officer program, promote leaders that also have the same attitude about care for the individual. And maybe we can continue to have this fantastic feeling that we have in our department. We just couldn't be any more blessed and comfortable with the group of men and women who take care of our safety, but more importantly, who take care of the special needs that you were talking about, both victims and offenders, and helping them to get the help that they need to get back into full participation in society. But it's such an easy thing for us to do, to support such an incredible balance, a beautiful balance that you have struck in helping our department to grow into the nurturing organization that it is. And as we hear so many criticisms of law enforcement nationwide, it's great to live in a bubble. And we know that that bubble isn't guaranteed, but we know that with the attitudes that you folks have, that safety that we can feel and the nurturing that we know is going to happen when folks do offend can simultaneously coexist. So thanks for all you've done to make that happen. It's a great position for us to be in.
Thanks, Richard. You have anything you would like to say? You do. Go ahead. I think the council gets an opportunity to say something.
Well, as one of the newest member of the council, I was the new kid on the block, and I was overwhelmed with the way that Chief Ross welcomed me and answered all of my questions. He always was quick to answer a text, and our new chief has already done that with me in answering some emails and things, and it just goes to Richard's point in how attentive and kind and thoughtful you are in the care that you have for the residents of Bountiful, and it has truly trickled down. There's no doubt in my mind it is a culture that has been learned, and it's become habitual with all of our law enforcement, and that's thanks to your example and to your leadership. And I will be forever grateful that you were the first chief that I was able to work with. So thank you very much for all that you have done.
Thank you. Kate?
When we learned the news about the offer from the governor, I think the first thing I did was text you to say you were the right person to do a tough job. And the second thing I did was to text the governor and tell him how mad I was at him for hiring you away from our city. And I followed it up subsequently with a recent Zoom meeting where I reaffirmed I was still mad at the governor for doing that. And it's been, one of those things where, I've gotten to see you as a resident of Bountiful, as a kid growing up in Bountiful, in this council capacity. But I get to have this unique view of what you do up at the state capitol, what you've done a long time for the Chiefs of Police Association up there because of my day job. And, I've been a little bit sad, about how quickly things happened and having you leave us. And today, we had the opportunity, we ran into each other in the basement of the Capitol and had a chat. And I've liked that, I still get to run into Tom quite a bit, but there's been a sticky issue up at the state Capitol on pretrial release and bail reform. And it's a sticky one. It is not going anywhere fast. It's got parties divided between sheriffs and police and prosecutors and political figures. And it looked like the issue was going to die. And then there was this person that came in and started pulling the parties back together. And that person is Tom. And I started to forgive the governor just a little bit because I was watching him do what I have seen him do in our community, which is take parties and help pull and bridge until people could see eye to eye, to help them just see facts and talk them through. And so I started to forgive the governor just a little bit this afternoon. I might not tell him that for a while. But I'm sure going to miss you in this capacity. I'm grateful, and I feel strongly that the work that you were asked to do by the governor on a state level is important work and work that I support. And to our new chief, I'm excited, first of all, to see the shiny shoes, because that was always something I got a kick out of Tom, watching him come up to the Capitol in the snowstorm and make sure his shoes were still shiny. And I know that much of his success in the last few years was because you were helping him do it, and was very impressed with the way you handled tough issues this summer with the rally at the park, and watched you handle a very difficult crowd, and was quite impressed. And so I think we're in good hands, and I think the state is in good hands, and so that leaves us in a pretty good spot.
Thank you. And Chris, you and I have already said stuff, so I'm going to turn the last words here to Kendall. And thanks.
Chief, you're the best. You'll always be. You'll always be chief to us. I appreciate your approach with neighborhood barbecues and officers at schools, and the kids here high-five the officers and know that they are their friends, and the neighborhoods. You've just really established a great culture, like Richard said, and I'll never forget when I got to shoot at a police day training, and really appreciate the insight that I've gotten from you about what it, just a little tiny piece of what it's like. I remember going through an exercise mimicking what police do when you pull someone over and you have no idea who's in the car you're approaching. And I'm just in awe of the things that you do, and the amazing team here. And I just have to say, you have the best stories. Honestly, the most entertaining, the best stories ever, Chief Ross. So anyway, we'll definitely miss you. We're so grateful to you, and thank you, and good luck.
Thank you. Thanks, all of you. Is this on? Am I okay? You can hear? It's nice to, I hope those of you who are not here with, as family can appreciate how great this has been to hear from these two incredible men, one that was here and the one that will be here, hopefully for a long time. Thanks, Chief. We appreciate you. All right. Next on the agenda, Alan Johnson. Back to buying cars and stuff.
Well, Mayor and Council, it's great to be here tonight. It's kind of tough to follow Chief Ross leaving.
Yeah.
But it is great to be here in this new
Well, we don't
building.
want you going anywhere.
No, I've still got another day or two. I haven't been talking
Yeah,
to
don't-
anybody on Tuesday if I follow the story, so
You
you're
just stay
safe
right
this
where you
Thursday.
are.
Anyway, I appreciate being here. I will say I have two agenda items this morning, and we did discuss both of these in Power Commission this morning. They both have unanimous approval from them. The first one we have to discuss is it's springtime again. It's time for us to start replacing transformers, the ones that, I'm going to say we have corrosion, they rot out in the park strips and transformer they supply looking for the summer. So we did go out to bid and got 3 bids back. We're looking on transformers. We actually go out transformers and buy the ones that have the lowest losses, and all 3 of these are fall into that same category. Typically, we would also take low bid when we do this. However, in this case, I'm actually looking to get approval on the high bid that's about $1,000 higher, only because of the delivery time of the low bid was 18 to 20 weeks out, and we don't have that much time to wait before we need it. And the low bid was 8 to 12 weeks, which is still a fairly long time, but it was more within range. So it would be the staff and the Power Commission's recommendation that we take the bid from Annixter Power Solutions for GE transformers for the 62 pole mount, pad mount combination for a total of $104,606. These transformers will be bought, put into inventory, and be charged out as we pull them out of inventory and use them over the next year or so.
Good. Any questions from, you were at the meetings this morning, Richard?
I was, and it's a big deal to the department to be able to have these parts
Perfect.
sooner than later.
Great.
So I'm happy to make a motion that we approve the bid from Annixter to purchase those transformers.
I have a quick question before. It's just is the delay because of COVID and getting parts to make the transformers, or is this a new routine, delay, or should we expect a longer lead time from here on out?
Well, I will say currently it is COVID. However, during the cycles of transformers and different things, they do go in kind of a cycle depending on what's going on. The good thing is that these transformers, we actually have the order in place because the stuff that's gone down in Texas has now slowed them back. So if we was to have gone through this same bid now, we'd actually be several weeks longer. But the current delay is there are some parts that come from out of the country that they put these together. And all of our parts are getting harder and harder. We've brought our inventory up last year at this time on anticipation. That's why when the windstorm came, we had plenty of materials not to prepare for the windstorm, although it was great, but because it's getting harder and harder. So we're working to keep it up, but this is particular as a COVID situation.
It's just hard. My son ordered 3 appliances and he can't get them for 90 days.
Yeah,
for
that's
his
what I say.
kitchen.
It's
That's just the way it is.
it's everywhere, but these are specific.
It's kind of the whole way.
Thank
So,
you.
anything
it.
else, Kate?
Nope, that was it.
Then, Kendallin, were you gonna, do I hear a second?
Kate's, I'm sorry.
I can second.
Okay.
Oh, you're the second, okay. Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. First one down, you got what you wanted there.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
Next.
The next one it's springtime again, and we're looking for the PROS program that we've got of repairing streetlights. And we do have 9 streetlight circuits that are burned up again, and they're on this list. 2 of them happen to be on 500 South. You'll notice it's a little dark, and they're starting to work on those. But as we work our way back through here, we've got the streetlight program. We've also got a couple distribution projects that we're looking, one of the big ones would be over towards the, I call it the Bang It or the RV property over there where they're building that, bringing the feeder out where we got a line that's too low, working our way back through it. So we've went out to several bids, and we actually did receive a number of bids, although some of them said they weren't there. But we would like to bid to the low bid from Black & McDonald for $363,485 for the 4 distribution circuit underground conduits they're gonna put in, and the 9 streetlight projects, which would include wire, putting new LED lights on and everything, putting them back up like they've done in the past. So it would be the Power Commission and staff's recommendation that we approve the low bid from Black & McDonald for that work for $363,485.
Any questions?
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
What percentage of our streetlights now are LED?
Oh, it's still a small percent. I mean, we're moving our way, but it's probably only 1 or 2%. I mean, we're working our way back as we do it, but as they burned out, but it's still a small percentage still.
Thank you.
Look for a motion?
Move to approve the bid from Black & McDonald for $363,485 for
And a
the
second.
underground boring.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Again, Mr. Johnson, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just want to point out, it's nice to sit here at the podium. I can actually read my paper normally.
Hey, we love it.
It worked out great.
We love it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And our professional golfer and Mr. Kent McComb.
Boy, it is nice not to have to wear a mask and your glasses fog up and you can't read anything.
Yeah,
So
there you
it's,
go.
that's awesome. But Mayor, council members, staff, thank you for having us here tonight and for your time. So I'll try and, you've been given your report. I'll try and make this as short as possible to summarize it. Each year as a golf staff, we continue to evaluate and analyze the golf business, climate, and finding ways to operate and do business more efficiently at the golf course. So in an effort of meeting our goal to continue evolving and operating as efficiently as possible, we believe now is the time to restructure our green fee model and go to more of a dynamic pricing model. If it's okay, I'd like to give you a little bit of a background. Over the years, we have been considered one of the best value facilities in Utah and nationally. So with that, our fee structure has been one where we've had a daily rate and then multiple discount rates during the year. So for instance, a punch card rate, a senior rate, junior rates, et cetera. So we are proposing that we go to more of a simplified rate, more of a dynamic pricing rate, having just one rate during a certain day. So with a couple exceptions of what I'll get to a little bit later in the presentation. So also a little bit of background. We in the past we have not taken prepaid reservations. People could just call up or go online, book their reservation without having to pay anything. When COVID came along this past year, under the Davis County Health Guidelines, we were required to have our fees prepaid because entering the golf shop for a while was not feasible, or they weren't admitted basically for a while. So, but this turned out to be one of the silver linings to COVID. In our opinion, this solved one of the biggest problems in the golf business that we have seen for many, many years. People in the past would make tee times, make reservations, and no show. We were averaging 6 or 8 foursomes a day that would make a tee time and no show, which it would cost us thousands of dollars a week. You know, and in the course of a season, that would add up to quite a bit. You know, anywhere between $150,000 and $200,000 in our estimate. So. Anyway, so we've been on the prepaid, and it's, like I said, it's been a game changer and something that we feel wholeheartedly in staying with. But with that, the original fee structure has become a bit confusing and non-efficient, not real efficient for our patrons, and it's kind of deterred from the experience we want to provide them. So we are proposing, like I said, more of a dynamic pricing model, which we feel will simplify and provide a more efficient means to operate our business up at the golf course. So a couple things. It would be more efficient, more simple, provide a more quality experience for our patrons, and help us to while also helping us to maintain a favorable position with other courses in our area. You've also been given a fee structure in there, and you can see in there with the courses we compete most directly with, we're still more on that low end. So we feel like it's very affordable, very fair, and a good position for us at this time. So it is, considering the above analysis and the rate survey, it's our recommendation of the golf staff to continue with prepaid reservations. Again, like we said, it's been a game changer in the business while adopting the following green fees, basically, or that green fee model. That model would be basically a Monday through a Thursday rate and a Friday through Sunday and holiday rate, so at a little bit higher peak rate. So a couple things in those I'd like to mention in the rate survey that you received. Those fees included a $16 optional cart fee. So those that choose to walk, you would take the $16 off of that. So 9-hole players, of course, would pay half of that. We just split it right in half for the 9-hole players. And the dynamic pricing would also give us flexibility. If we found that there were slower times during a certain day, we could dynamic price, send out email blasts, at a bit lower price and get some more people out there. So we feel it's very flexible, very efficient, and there's a few courses in the area that are already doing that, and it's working to success. So we have a bit of a track record there. With that, we are proposing that we keep the junior rate. We feel like keeping the junior rate in there will allow us to keep it, well, let me say, it's essential to keep growing the game of golf at Bountiful Ridge and in our area. So we would like to keep the junior rate in there. So the juniors would basically, their rate would be less, and so they would just have to call us and prepay with that rate. So whereas in the other model, patrons could go on and book their reservations online or give us a call with their prepaid rate. So anyway, sorry for the long presentation there, but I hope it was try to condense it as much as possible. But the proposed model will provide ability to maximize our rounds and revenue while providing a higher level of customer service to our patrons. So thank you for your consideration, and I'm glad to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from the council?
I've got one.
Yes.
Will your dynamic rate, will you at some point think about flexing in different parts of the season, your shoulder seasons, flexing those down even further, or,
Yes, ma'am, we do. Actually, there's a couple times during the year, depending on what the weather's doing in the spring. If it's, as we're coming right out of winter, there are times where we may, flex it down a little there. During our aerification process, when the course isn't in its peak condition, we can utilize it there as well as in the fall. In the past, well, I've been up there for 18 years. We have utilized a fall rate. So again, the ability to have that flexibility would fit right into this model. So we feel it'd be very efficient.
Thanks.
I think I appreciate your thought that's gone into this, and it seems like the online option is really good. And so thank you for your work on this. I'd be happy to make a motion if the council's ready to accept this new rate structure.
I'll second that.
Thank you. A second. Any further discussion? Yes, I have a further discussion. Hey, for those who don't know what the aeration is, they aerate the greens so that they'll be great, but they're not fun to putt on. So, it's a tougher game of golf. Sometimes if I find out that there's a golf course that's aerating, you just want to go play somewhere else. So you're really inviting them at a lesser price to be on our great greens, but they all have to be taken care of, and every course aerates.
Exactly, yeah.
The other thing you might notice is that the Salt Lake courses are all more expensive than ours basically out here in Davis County. And those courses out in Salt Lake, they're all more expensive. None of them are as good as Bountiful. The only one, Bonneville, would come the closest, but none of the others are even close to being as good a course as Davis or Valley View, and especially Bountiful. Would you agree with that, Sir
I
Kent?
would agree with that, yes.
All right, so that's the further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Did we have a motion?
Yeah.
Did I hear it?
Ken
Okay, I
Malone,
just
Chris
missed
with a
it. All
second.
right. I heard her say she was going to move a motion, but I didn't remember.
Yeah, we
Okay.
did have a second, right? It was Chris.
Yes.
Yeah, we got it right.
Yeah, no, you're right. I was busy
you're
writing
right.
something as you were doing that.
Yeah, we've got some no-notes for you.
Mayor, I'm happy to report that the aerated greens have never negatively impacted my game.
Well, maybe sometimes it helps. Sometimes I hit and it
Terrible.
actually hits something.
Just as terrible either way.
Yeah, it just
Yes.
hits it and goes
Could I ask
somewhere
you,
else.
Mayor, could I ask a question? I don't like that look.
Yeah, no, you can't, no, you can ask a question.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
you can ask a
Well,
question.
as a non-golfer and lover of turkeys, what do you do and what's our concern about the turkeys at the golf course?
So
Not the people turkeys, but
okay,
the
yes,
winged
okay.
turkeys, yeah.
So the turkey population continues to grow.
It does.
I mean, we've tried trapping them, and, Brock he'll attest to that. We've tried trapping them and relocating them, but they just keep multiplying faster than we
They
can do
keep
that.
coming back. They hurt the holes above, for the most part, they hurt the holes above Bountiful Boulevard. They hurt 10, 11, and 12,
Yeah,
the greens.
There are a lot of them up there in the fall, so.
And they don't taste, they're not the good ones that you eat at Thanksgiving, so.
No.
They're tougher than boiled owl, so you wouldn't want to eat those. Hey, Brock. Anything else? All right,
Thank you so much for your
Okay.
time and for your support. Thanks very
Good.
much. Okay.
see ya.
Gary, do we have an active removal program?
All right, Gary, you have the last one here, Gary,
I do, thank you.
except for adjournment.
Happy to bring us home. I handed out copies of the most recent draft of the interlocal agreement. It incorporates all of the comments that the council raised at our work session with the school district. There are a couple of items that we've tweaked with them that I wanted to point out that are slightly different. If you'll look at page 1, duration of the agreement, this is the area where we agree to revisit our agreement. They have suggested language that says whenever we deem desirable. I added that that would be anticipated to be at 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years. Does that seem reasonable to the council on a time frame for reviewing the agreement?
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. I figured by 5 years, we'd have it figured out, so. And then it's a 10-year term of an agreement. On the next page, on page 6, it's just clarifying that the fields they'll have priority use of 2 fields for Bountiful High and Viewmont High sports programs, and that the use begins at 2 and ends at sunset. I had put dusk, they preferred sunset. To me, it's like trying to figure out the difference between tangerine and orange. It's the same, but, and then let's see, page 3, language there about jointly developing some standards for turf maintenance and guidelines for rain closures and turf height. They were comfortable with that language, so Brock, that's something that we can do after the agreement. And then finally, there was boilerplate language in there, and this is on page 4, about a 90-day termination clause. They requested that come out as that doesn't do them any good. They're really looking for the 10 years. They say that in this case, we can terminate effective immediately if there's a breach to the obligations outlined in this agreement, and if they're not cured within 90 days. There are a couple of other changes that Clint has in mind that we kind of discovered. We received this draft this afternoon, so he's taken a look at it. There's a couple of other changes that he'd like to suggest and point out, and then there's a number of small errors and spelling and things that we would ask in your motion to allow us to fix. Clint?
Thank you. So, as Gary stated, there are some Scrivener's errors in here that we can clean those up, adding an S to a word, things like that. But the substantive changes, or semi-substantive, is just a few. On page 1 in the preamble, the whereases, number 3, I would just suggest that we strike where it says congruous uses as the parties see fit, just to say for sports or other congruous uses, cancel the rest of that line out. In 5, at the end, it references the recreation district. We just need to change that. That got left in there for some reason. And then over the page 2 of the agreement, paragraph 4 under site description, it says the site will be divided into 3 playing fields. Just change that to the site will include 3 playing fields. And then over the page on page 3, liability and indemnification, the last sentence on there talks about, pretty boilerplate language about insurance retention, and we're a little bit different. We're self-insured, so I would just like it to read, each party agrees to maintain public liability and property damage insurance coverage or remain self-insured pursuant to state law, and then continue the sentence. And then finally, last one, page 4, paragraph 16 under dispute resolution, it talks about the city athletic director. It's the city parks director. So those are the more substantive ones. The other ones are commas, S's, misspellings, things like that.
Well, they all seem pretty innocuous.
Yep.
So I'd look for a motion to approve this with those conditions presented to us by Clint Drake.
Mayor, I'd be happy to make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2021-06, approving the interlocal agreement with those corrections.
Thank you. And a second?
Second?
Thank you, Melanie. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes, and I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.